What happened on that late-night stage might go down as one of the most surprising moments in talk show history. Stephen Colbert, known everywhere for his razor-sharp humor and his ability to tear down anyone with a single joke, ended up facing a guest who left him stunned in a way no one expected. Karoline, the woman sitting across from him under those bright studio lights, delivered a comeback so quick and so clean that even Colbert, who has built an entire career on quick thinking, was caught completely off guard. People who were in the audience that night said they could practically feel the air shift the moment she fired back. It all began in typical late-night fashion. Stephen walked onto the stage with his usual charm, waving, smiling, and warming up the audience effortlessly. His voice carried its normal confident energy, the kind he uses every night to control the rhythm of the show. But from the very beginning, he made one small mistake that would cost him later. As he introduced his guest, he tilted his head with that playful but slightly condescending smirk he often uses. "Our guest tonight has been making a bit of noise online," he joked. "Let's see if she can make the same impact here." The audience laughed because he delivered it the way only Stephen could, but in Karoline's eyes, there was a spark. It wasn't anger, it wasn't frustration. It was the look of someone who had been underestimated too many times and knew exactly how to turn the moment to her advantage. Stephen didn't realize it yet, but a storm was already forming. Karoline had spent years trying to be taken seriously in a field mostly run by men. She had pushed through mockery, criticism, and people assuming she didn't belong. So being talked down to on national television wasn't new, but tonight she wasn't going to let it slide. As she walked onto the stage, the crowd welcomed her warmly. But what really stood out was her posture. She wasn't nervous. She wasn't trying to please anyone. She looked at home, as if she had stepped into a room she finally earned the right to stand in. Stephen tried to start light-hearted. He pulled up one of her recent social media posts, the kind that had brought her a lot of attention online. With a playful grin, he asked, "So when you tweeted "These a broken bar," did you actually think it through? Or were you just smashing the keyboard and hoping for the best?" The audience chuckled, expecting her to brush it off. But Karoline didn't miss a beat. She leaned slightly forward, smiled politely, and said, "Stephen, I'm pretty sure your monologues are written the same way I just tap random keys and hope a joke appears." The studio exploded. Laughter, gasps, even a few cheers echoed across the room. Some audience members turned to each other with wide eyes, as if silently asking, "Did she really just say that?" Stephen froze for half a second. Even he seemed surprised by the sharpness of her comeback. His eyes widened before he quickly tried to play it off with a laugh, but the moment had already landed. Karoline wasn't just matching his energy, she was beating him at his own game. From there on, the atmosphere shifted. Stephen tried to maintain his usual upper hand, but something about Karoline's calm confidence made it difficult. The audience noticed it too. Every time she spoke, people leaned in, curious to hear what she would say next. Every time Stephen tried to tease her, she returned it with something even sharper. And each comeback felt effortless, as if she had been waiting all her life for someone to underestimate her on live television. Then came the turning point, the moment that sealed the night's legacy. Stephen brought up one of her earlier projects, something she had worked on before gaining attention online. With the same teasing tone, he said, "Now this project of a broken bar, wasn't it a bit, how do I say this nicely, a broken bar amateurish?" The crowd reacted with that half laugh, half gasp sound people make when they sense a joke that might be going too far. Karoline paused for the first time. She didn't rush. She didn't get defensive. She simply looked at Stephen with a calm expression that made the room go quiet. "Stephen," she said softly, "I watched your first stand-up performance. You were an amateur too. But at least my project wasn't as boring as your show." The silence lasted only a second before the entire room exploded again, louder this time. People clapped, shouted, whistled. Some covered their mouths. Others leaned forward as if they needed to see Stephen's reaction up close. Stephen's face changed instantly. He wasn't offended. He wasn't angry. He looked a broken bar, stunned. And in a strange way, impressed, as if he couldn't believe someone had finally turned the mirror back on him with such clean precision. He forced a smile, one of those smiles hosts use when they don't know what else to do, and tried to regain his footing. But the impact of Karoline's words lingered like a shockwave for the rest of the interview. No matter how hard he tried to shift the conversation, the audience kept reacting to her with heightened excitement. Every small joke she made brought bigger laughs. Every comment she delivered felt stronger because she had already won them over. Karoline didn't gloat. She didn't act triumphant. She simply continued the interview as if nothing unusual had happened. But the room knew what they had witnessed, a rare moment when Stephen Colbert, the man who dominates every conversation with quick wit, had been outplayed in his own domain. By the time they reached the final segment, Stephen had regained some of his rhythm but not all of his authority. He glanced at the crowd and said with forced humor, "So who do you think won tonight, Karoline or me?" The audience shouted in response, but the energy leaned heavily in Karoline's favor. With a playful shrug, Stephen added, "Or maybe the real winners are the viewers who enjoy seeing bold, honest conversations on late-night TV." What happened next spread across social media within minutes. Clips of Karoline's comebacks began circulating. People posted comments like, "Did she really just destroy Stephen Colbert on his own show? And this is the first time I've seen him at a loss for words." The hashtag #ColbertVS Karoline skyrocketed, climbing trends lists across multiple platforms. Some viewers criticized Stephen for sounding condescending at the start, saying he should have shown more respect. Others praised Karoline for standing her ground and delivering the kind of confidence people love to see from an underdog finally getting recognition. But regardless of the online debate, one thing became clear: the moment had cemented itself in late-night TV history. People talked about how Karoline didn't just clap back, she did it with control, intelligence, and a sense of timing that even professional comedians struggle to achieve. They talked about how Stephen, instead of reacting poorly, seemed to accept the blow with a mix of shock and admiration. They talked about how the chemistry between them, even with the tension, made the interview strangely captivating. In the days that followed, entertainment outlets replayed the moment on loop. Some shows invited Karoline to appear, wanting to capture the same fire she had brought to Stephen's stage. Columnists wrote about it, calling it everything from a turning point in late-night dynamics to a refreshing reminder that new voices matter. People who had never heard of Karoline before that night now followed her across platforms, eager to see more of the woman who momentarily silenced one of the sharpest comedic voices on television. Stephen addressed the moment lightly in the next episode of his show. With his usual playful tone, he joked about barely surviving last night's guest and admitted that sometimes he underestimated how clever people could be. It was one of the few times he acknowledged being caught off guard, which only made people appreciate the moment even more. The clip of that acknowledgement went viral too, adding yet another layer to the story. Karoline, on her side, remained humble in interviews afterward. She said she had no intention of attacking Stephen and that she simply responded honestly to the tone he set. She explained that she had spent years being talked down to in her industry, and she had learned not to let people dismiss her work. She said she respected Stephen and was surprised by how quickly the moment blew up online. But the public didn't care. They loved the confidence she showed, and they loved even more that she delivered it without cruelty or anger. The incident became a story people referenced whenever discussing power dynamics in talk shows, especially how women are often treated by male hosts who assume they can control the narrative. Karoline's moment became an example of what happens when someone refuses to play the polite guest role and instead challenges the host on equal ground. And even Stephen's fans admitted that the exchange made for incredible television. What made the moment so unforgettable wasn't just the comeback itself, it was the build-up, the tension, the audience's reaction, and the fact that it happened to someone as famously quick-witted as Stephen Colbert. It was the perfect combination of confidence, timing, and courage. Karoline walked into that studio as a rising figure trying to prove herself. She walked out having delivered a moment that people will replay for years. Even months later, The clip still circulates. People still quote it. And whenever someone says that no one can out-joke Stephen Colbert, there is always someone else who replies, except that one night when Karoline proved him wrong.